The biopic has been one of the most popular subgenres of film since the early days of Hollywood. Offering a glimpse inside the lives of some of the most famous and intriguing people who have ever lived, biopics are typically big hits with audiences and critics alike. However, like every subgenre in film, some biopics aren't hits. Just because the subject of a film is interesting doesn't necessarily mean the film will be interesting. It can be very anticlimactic when the movie doesn't live up to the person or people it's portraying. There are several biopics that left fans disappointed. Number 10, Bohemian Rhapsody. Although it was a great movie, this is the Academy Award movie that the movie received mixed reviews. Bohemian Rhapsody was a massive success and reinvigorated music biopics. It grossed nearly $1 billion and won a slew of awards, most of which were for Rami Malek's performance as Freddie Mercury. Despite a great lead performance and a fun reenactment of Queen's Live Aid concert, Bohemian Rhapsody really doesn't have much going for it. The movie's biggest flaw is the middle-of-the-road direction that plays it way too safe for a movie about Queen. It portrays Mercury as an egotistical celebrity more than it does a flawed human. Worse than that, Bohemian Rhapsody portrays the other band members as one-dimensional characters. While the movie is entertaining, it lacks any real depth beyond Malek's performance.
Number 9, Jobs. Shortly after Steve Jobs' death, two biopics about his life came out around the same time. One film starred Michael Fassbender and the other, Jobs, starred Ashton Kutcher as the late founder of Apple. Jobs focuses on the early days of his career. While Kutcher received praise for his performance, Jobs was widely panned by critics and currently holds a low 28% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Jobs came under fire by former Apple employees, most notably co-founder Steve Wozniak, for its historical inaccuracies and for portraying Jobs as crueler than he actually was. Jobs also has some pacing issues that result in a boring film about a very interesting man. Number 8, J. Edgar. J. Edgar tells the story of FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover and stars Leonardo DiCaprio as one of America's most controversial figures. Despite being directed by the talented Clint Eastwood, J. Edgar lacks Oscar-worthy quality.
J. Edgar had the potential to be a classic but ended up being a very forgettable film. Its story is hollow and, with its non-linear plot, is simply too hard to follow. Although the biographical drama was cited as one of the best films of 2011, J. Edgar suffered from poor design choices and a confusing narrative. Number 7, Stardust. David Bowie was just one of the many eccentric musicians to receive a biopic following the success of Bohemian Rhapsody. Bowie was known for his vibrant personality, charm, and wit. However, his biopic, Stardust, had none of these traits. Instead, the movie portrays him as a jerk, so fans were reasonably upset.
In fact, Bowie's depiction was so disliked that his estate didn't allow Stardust to feature any of his music. Thus, a film centering on David Bowie's incredible career didn't feature his iconic and popular songs. Stardust currently sits at 19% on Rotten Tomatoes, probably because its biggest sin is portraying Bowie as far less interesting as he was. Number 6, Amelia. Similar to J. Edgar, Amelia is a movie that seemed to have all the right ingredients for an exciting biopic but failed to do anything with them. Instead, Amelia follows the biopic movie formula to a T, and the result is a very by-the-numbers film that becomes tedious to watch.
Amelia comes off as a highlight reel of Earhart's life instead of ever feeling like a story the audience can invest themselves into. There's no build-up or exposition, things just sort of happen with no real explanation. Amelia could have told an incredible story about the record-setting Amelia Earhart, but it ultimately fell short. Number 5, All Eyes on Me. American rapper Tupac Shakur is undoubtedly one of the most influential musicians of the 90s, and his legacy still lives on. His 1996 album All Eyes on Me was a game-changer that received instant critical acclaim. The 2017 movie of the same name, however, didn't earn the same success. All Eyes on Me was universally panned by critics and is considered one of the worst biopics of all time.
All Eyes on Me only skims the surface of Tupac's life without exploring anything that makes him interesting. Several people featured in the film, like Jada Pinkett Smith, criticized All Eyes on Me's accuracy. It was a major disappointment that only disserviced the iconic rapper's life. Number 4, Diana. A biopic is usually a major disappointment when the lead actor later says they regret doing it, as is the case with Naomi Watts and her role as Princess Diana in the 2013 film Diana. The movie was heavily criticized by both critics and audiences, who found Diana to be a lackluster effort, only portraying the final 2 years of Diana's life without showing anything that made her the people's princess.
Diana currently holds an 7% on Rotten Tomatoes. The consensus blames the movie's poor quality on bad writing and poor direction. Naomi Watts also received mixed reviews for her performance, which ultimately earned her a Razzie nomination. Number 3, Alexander. Oliver Stone's biopic Alexander clocks in with a 3-hour runtime, which audiences feel every minute of. The film received criticism for its historical inaccuracy, long runtime, and tiresome narration.
As a result, Alexander received 6 nominations at the Razzies in 2005 for Worst Picture, Worst Actor, Worst Actress, Worst Director, Worst Screenplay, and Worst Supporting Actor. Although the biopic didn't win any Razzies, fans can't help but feel that these nominations were justified. Alexander failed to shine a light on the rich history of Alexander the Great's time. Number 2, Stonewall. The Stonewall riots were an incredibly important historical event for the LGBTQ+ community. Since the Stonewall riots sparked the gay liberation movement, fans were excited to hear that Roland Emmerich's Stonewall was being released. However, the film followed a fictional white male lead, and many accused the filmmaker of whitewashing history.
Stonewall was universally panned by critics and it currently holds a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the consensus calling it offensively bad. Additionally, Marsha P. Johnson, a hugely influential black activist for gay rights, was mostly relegated to comedic relief. And number 1, the 2016 American biographical film written and directed by Cynthia Mort, Nina. Nina sets out to tell the story of civil rights activist and musician, Nina Simone. However, Nina was critically panned for being disrespectful. The film paints the iconic jazz singer as an alcoholic drug addict with a difficult personality. Naturally, Nina Simone's family refused to endorse the biopic, so none of her music is actually in the film.
Nina was a critical and commercial failure, earning only 2% on Rotten Tomatoes and barely making more than $20,000 at the box office. Zoe Saldana, who plays Simone, has said that she regrets doing the movie as Nina Simone deserved better.